Maya Chen wasn't the type to chase scandals. Her reputation was built on nuance, not clickbait. So when her editor handed her a high-profile assignment, a sweeping motivational biography on David Goggins, the Navy SEAL turned ultra-marathoner turned legend, she expected inspiration, not intrigue. At first, everything unfolded as expected. Goggins' public story was cinematic: abused childhood, obesity, rejection, transformation through sheer willpower, and an almost mythological rise through Navy SEAL Hell Weeks, firefighting, and ultra-endurance suffering. He was, on the surface, a modern Spartan, a man forged by pain, revered for his mental toughness. But as Maya dug deeper, the cracks began to show. Small things didn't line up. Goggins' high school records were unusually sparse for someone so publicly open about his struggles. A Navy SEAL classmate interviewed off the record admitted, yeah, Goggins was there, but not the whole time. He disappeared for weeks, came back different. His medical records were redacted, all of them. Then came the photo. It arrived in a plain envelope, unmarked, slipped under the door of Maya's apartment in D.C. The picture was old, faded, possibly taken with a military-grade camera. It showed Goggins, identifiable by his unmistakable jawline and posture, standing among 6 other men in combat gear. The problem? According to government databases, all 6 were officially declared killed in action 20 years ago, in a mission that, by all public accounts, Goggins wasn't even part of. A chill traced down Maya's spine. She ran the photo through facial recognition software. It triggered a Department of Defense warning. Her IP was flagged. Moments later, her laptop shut itself down. Permanently. When she brought it to a private tech consultant, he simply shook his head. Whatever you touched, it was never meant to be seen. Maya's journalistic instincts, honed over a decade of chasing slow-burn truths, screamed buried narrative. This wasn't just a misunderstood hero with a rough past. This was something else, something deliberately hidden. The man the world worshipped for pushing through pain might not be the man he claimed to be. And as Maya circled closer to the truth, a thought lodged deep in her gut. What if even Goggins doesn't remember who he really is? The warehouse sat on the outskirts of Quantico, its rusted signage so faded it looked like a phantom. Officially, it was a disused naval storage depot, off-limits to the public, decommissioned after a fire in 2004. Unofficially, Maya Chen had traced 3 leads here, all terminating in silence. She slipped through a side entrance under moonlight, aided by the same contact who'd sent the mysterious photograph. He never gave a name, just a gravel-thick voice over a burner phone. You want the real story? Look where the government stops keeping track. The air inside was stale with dust and chemical residue. Rows of rusting filing cabinets stretched into darkness, each drawer tagged with alphanumeric codes. Most were empty, deliberately gutted. But behind a locked iron-plated cabinet, Maya found something different, a heavy envelope sealed with red wax, bearing no insignia, just 2 words stamped in fading ink. Project Iron. Well, her hands trembled as she slit the seal. Inside were scattered documents, heavily redacted pages, blood-stained photographs, and a torn memo referencing neural recalibration protocols. The files made references to cognitive restructuring, moral disassociation, and a cryptic subject file marked X11, later blacked out with a force that tore the paper. No dates, no signatures, just silence. Tucked at the bottom, was a yellowed index card, typed on it, faded but still legible. One survived, or one escaped. Never both. Maya froze. A low hum filled the room, mechanical, deliberate. She turned. The warehouse lights flickered to life in sequence. Someone had triggered the security grid. They were watching. She stuffed the envelope into her coat, heart pounding. Every cell in her body told her to run. But somewhere beneath the fear, another feeling took hold. She was no longer writing a biography. She was unraveling a cover-up. And if Goggins was really X11, then she hadn't just found a file. She had found a ghost the military had spent 2 decades trying to erase. Dr. Emory Vance had the haunted look of a man who knew too much. Maya found him in a run-down cabin just outside of Salt Lake City. Isolated, living under a name he hadn't used in over a decade. The address was unlisted, hidden in a labyrinth of online aliases. Even the air around him seemed damp with secrets. When Maya knocked on the door, it was opened by a man who had once been at the forefront of one of the most classified military programs in history. But that was before his life had shattered. "Dr. Vance?" Maya asked, barely above a whisper, as though speaking louder might break something more fragile than the silence around them. Vance's eyes flickered over her, measuring her presence, before he stepped aside. His hand shook as he poured a drink from a dusty bottle, eyes darting to the corner where a cracked TV hummed softly, the static whispering like a prelude to something ominous. He didn't speak until Maya sat down across from him. "You're not here to write about my research," he said, his voice brittle. "And I'm not here to talk about it." But Maya could feel it. There was something beneath his denial, something that wanted to spill out, to be heard. She leaned in. "I know about Project Iron Will." Vance's face paled. His fingers trembled around the glass. He didn't ask how she knew. He didn't need to. "We didn't train them," he muttered, the words slipping from him like a confession. "We rewired them." His eyes darted nervously toward the back door, as if expecting someone to burst through it at any moment. "Do you understand the difference? Training is shaping behavior. Rewiring is something far worse." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "What did you do to him? What did you do to Goggins?" He took a long gulp of his drink, then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. His gaze settled somewhere distant, as if the truth had long since buried itself too deep for him to retrieve. "I've seen what he's become," Vance said, the words ragged. "But I knew him before they made him. Subject X, the prototype." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Goggins wasn't part of the plan, not at first. He volunteered, thinking he was invincible. But we had plans for him that no one knew. He was supposed to be the key." Maya's blood ran cold. "The key to what?" "The ultimate soldier," Vance said, voice nearly breaking, "not with weapons or strength, but with the mind. We were trying to eliminate weaknesses, fear, empathy, guilt, everything that could hold someone back. We erased it." He locked eyes with her, his gaze full of raw terror. "And Goggins?" "He was the only one who survived, but not the way you think. He escaped." A shiver of realization passed through Maya. She'd always thought Goggins' endurance was rooted in sheer force of will, in training. But this was different. This was something beyond human limits, something artificially crafted. "You can't hide the truth forever," Maya whispered. Vance swallowed, his expression tightening. "You don't understand what you're asking. You think you can expose him, but you'll be exposing them, the ones who built it. They will never let you finish what you started. They'll bury everything, and they'll bury you with it." Just as he spoke, the sound of a car engine rumbled outside. Maya's instincts screamed. Time was up. Vance's face twisted in dread. "You don't have much time," he warned, grabbing her arm. "Get out now. They know you're here. Trust me, you don't want to follow this path. It's already too late for me." His hand trembled against her wrist as he pushed her toward the door. "You don't want to know the full story. Some stories are better left untold." Maya stumbled outside, Vance's words ringing in her ears, but she wasn't turning back. She couldn't. Not now. Behind her, the door slammed shut with a finality that sent a cold chill down her spine. She was already in too deep, and now there was no escaping the truth she'd just uncovered. The next few days felt like a blur of shadow and silence. Maya couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching her, of unseen forces moving in the periphery. The walls around her grew tighter, the air colder. Every moment she spent digging into the past of David Goggins seemed to pull her deeper into a labyrinth she was no longer sure she could escape. Her first clue had come from Vance. He had given her just enough information to raise 100 more questions. But the deeper Maya dug, the more her research led to dead ends. Everyone who might have had a piece of the puzzle, the military officers, the scientists, the witnesses, began disappearing one by one. It started with the phone calls. The first was from a man named Bill Dawson, a retired Navy officer who had served with Goggins. His voice had been low, cautious. "You don't know what you're getting into," he'd warned. "Goggins? That man's not what you think he is. I've seen it firsthand, but I won't say more over the phone." Before Maya could press him for more details, the line went dead. She tried to call back. No answer. The next day, Bill Dawson was found in his car, a single gunshot to the head. The police ruled it a suicide, but the absence of a note, the lack of any history of depression, it didn't add up. Then there was Natalie Pierce, a former colleague of Dr. Vance, who had worked on Project Iron Will. Maya had tracked her down to a quiet cafe in the outskirts of Portland. When she arrived, she found Natalie sitting at a table, her face pale and drawn, eyes darting nervously to the door. It was clear she was waiting for someone, or perhaps something. "I can't tell you what you want to hear," Natalie had said, her voice trembling. "I don't know what they did to him, but Goggins wasn't the same after the program. He was a machine, a living, breathing weapon. But he had pieces of him taken, and some pieces were never put back." Before Maya could get another word in, a car pulled up outside, its headlights briefly flooding the cafe. Natalie's face drained of color. "They are here," she whispered. I can't do this." Maya watched in horror as Natalie bolted from the cafe, disappearing into the night. By the time Maya made her way outside to follow, she saw Natalie's car speeding away, a dark figure in pursuit on foot. Less than an hour later, a news bulletin flashed on Maya's phone. "Body found in river, local woman disappears." There was no explanation, no closure. The final blow came the following morning when Maya received an email from an anonymous account. The subject line read, "You're next." The message was short, cryptic, but chilling. "Stop before they stop you. You're too close. Your last warning." Maya stared at the words for a long moment, her hand trembling above her keyboard. Someone powerful, was actively trying to erase every trace of Goggins' past. And as the shadow of fear settled over her, she realized the depth of the danger she was in. The truth wasn't just buried. It was being actively erased. And the closer she came to it, the more certain it became. She was next. It came to Maya in a plain, nondescript envelope, much like the first. No return address, no signature, only an electronic surveillance file, encrypted and oddly lightweight. The file was titled Goggins Unseen. She knew this was another lead, one that was bound to be more dangerous than any before. This wasn't just a source, it was someone watching her, someone who knew exactly where she was going, who knew the questions she was asking, and wanted to control the narrative. The video was grainy, filmed in low resolution, but what it showed would haunt her for days. The first frame captured David Goggins standing in a small cemetery. His face was set in a mask of stoic determination, but his eyes were filled with something far darker, more vulnerable. He was standing in front of a grave marked only with the initials NG. The gravestone was plain, unadorned by any other marker, no birth date, no epitaph. Maya's pulse quickened. She zoomed in on the stone. NG. What did it mean? A name buried in time, like so many others in the shadows of history. But then the camera shifted. A woman appeared beside him. She was standing just outside the frame at first, watching him from a distance, her face obscured by the veil of nightfall. She took a step forward, and as the camera shifted again, her features became clear. Her name was Alina, and in the brief moment the video captured her face, Maya felt the full weight of the past crashing into the present. Alina wasn't just any woman. Maya had done enough digging by now to recognize her. Alina was Goggins' first love, the woman whose disappearance had remained a mystery for years. No police reports, no clues, just an empty space in his story. And now Maya was seeing her again. But this wasn't a happy reunion. The woman's face was twisted with grief, her expression pained. There was no warmth between them, just an unspoken burden, an unspeakable loss that was too heavy for words. Goggins stood motionless as Alina knelt before the grave, her hands trembling. The camera caught her silent sobs, her shoulders shaking as she leaned forward, kissing the stone. A deep, guttural sob escaped Goggins then, but it wasn't the cry of a man who had conquered his pain. It was the sound of someone trapped beneath it. "I never wanted this," he whispered, the words barely audible, the desperation in his voice unmistakable. "You shouldn't have come back." But Alina never responded. She simply stood, her back to him, and began to walk away, vanishing into the shadows of the cemetery as though fading into nothingness. The tape cut off there, leaving Maya frozen in her chair, eyes wide. Her mind raced as she rewatched the scene again and again, unable to process what she had just witnessed. Alina's disappearance was a secret that Goggins had buried deep, so deep that even his most intimate interviews never touched it. But now, through the grainy footage, it was clear. Goggins' first love had died, or had been erased from his life, and the pain he had carried for all these years was real. But what had really happened to Alina? What was the truth behind the tragedy that Goggins had never spoken of? The key to Goggins' tortured past and the forces that had shaped him seemed locked away in that grave. The tape was a warning. Someone had given it to her, someone who knew exactly what she was uncovering. And if Goggins was hiding something this deep, Maya realized just how far-reaching the secrets around him went. In that moment, it became clear. The myth of David Goggins was about to be shattered. But the truth? It might be more dangerous than she ever imagined.